Hello everyone, thanks for joining me here on my channel. For this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make this crochet blanket or throw, all depending on the size that you are wanting to make it at. Now this is just a bunch of granny squares and we'll join them together by seaming them together. Once you've seamed as many as need be to get to the size of blanket or throw that you're looking for, we'll work an edging all around this blanket. I've used 3 colors for my granny square. So here it is, the blue, brown, and pink. So for the materials, you will need yarn. I've used a category 4. So this is a worsted weight and it's an RN. The recommended hook on this yarn label is a 5mm hook. So I've used these 3 colors in the same weight. They are all category 4s. And then for the hook, I went 1 size up on the recommended hook and I'll be using a 6mm hook. And then you'll need a pair of scissors and a yarn or wool needle. So let's get on with this tutorial. Please do subscribe and hope you enjoy. These granny squares are complete in 6 rounds. So we'll begin with this flower puff. That's round 1 and round 2, and then we'll have round 3, round 4, 5, and round 6 to complete 1 granny square. Now, for these measurements, these are quite big granny squares, and they measure around 6 inches or 15 centimeters on either of their sides. Let's begin with that flower puff. Form a slip knot. Chain 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we'll join the first and last chain to form a little ring. So to join, you'll slip stitch. And here's a little ring. We'll work round 1 into this little ring. Then it's round 1, chain 1. Chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So into this ring, we'll work 12 half double crochets. To work a half double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook into that ring, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 3 loops on the hook. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, and 12. To complete the round, into that first stitch, slip stitch to join. You can pull on this tail end to tighten up on this little hole that we formed here. Round 2, chain 2. Work a puff stitch into the next stitch. So to work a puff stitch, it's yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop and elongate the loop. You'll do this 4 times in total. So that was 1 time, yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop. 2 times, yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop. That was 3 times, yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop. That was 4 times. Then it's yarn over and go through all the loops on the hook. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Slip stitch into the next stitch. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Work a puff stitch into the next stitch. Slip stitch into the next stitch. So you'll continue on with chain 2, puff stitch, chain 2, slip stitch, until you have worked 6 of these petals in total. So you'll repeat this step 4 more times. I've continued on, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals, and then I slip stitched into my last stitch to join. At this point, I can fasten off and cut off on that excess yarn. If you look at it, this is the wrong side and here's the right side. I'll take this tail end, I'll push it through that hole and bring it to the wrong side. And if I pull on it, it tightens up on that hole. I'll bring in my change of color, and here, right at the top of the petal, you'll find a stitch there. That's where we'll be working all our stitches for this round. Okay, so it's right at the top of these petals. Attach yarn to that stitch right at the center of the petal. So it's around there. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Chain 2 does not count as a stitch in this round. Into that same stitch from where we've chained 2, work 6 double crochets. To work a double crochet, it's yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on your hook. So that was 1 stitch, and here's the second, then it's the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So for this round, we're working 6 double crochets into each of these petals, those stitches right at the top of the petal. Into the next petal, work 6 double crochets. Continue on with 6 double crochets into each of these petals. I've continued on with round 2, working those 6 double crochets above each petal. So to end the round, into that second chain from chain 2 that we had initially started off the round with, slip stitch to join. And then fasten off. Continuing on with round 4, attach yarn to that first stitch. So it's right where we've fastened off at. Bring in your next color. Chain 2. Chain 2 counts as a stitch. In this case, it counts as a double crochet. So into the next 7 stitches, work 1 stitch each. So here we're working double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Including our chain 2, we have 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we'll work our first corner into the next stitch. So it's a double crochet into that stitch, chain 2, double crochet into the same stitch. That becomes corner 1. Into the next 8 stitches, work 1 double crochet each. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then into the next stitch, we'll work our second corner, which is a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet all into that same stitch. So that's corner 2. Into the next 8 stitches, work 8 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Into the next stitch, we'll work our third corner, which is a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Into the next 8 stitches, work 1 double crochet each. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here you have 1 stitch remaining. Into that last stitch, we'll work our 4th corner. So it's a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that last stitch. Then to end the round, into our second chain from chain 2, slip stitch to join. So here you have it with our 4 corners. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Round 5, chain 2. Chain 2 counts as a stitch. So for this round, you're working double crochets into all double crochets. You're working a corner into the chain 2 spaces. That's a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into those spaces. So you'll see that for this round here, including chain 2, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches before the corner. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stitches before our next corner. So here again, you'll have 10 stitches and then it's a corner, 10 stitches, a corner, and then you work 1 more double crochet before you slip stitch to join. So it's double crochets to that first corner. Then it's a corner into this chain 2 space. That's a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Then it's 10 double crochets to the next corner, and you'll continue on until you get to the end of the round. Here I am at the end of round 5, and I've worked my last corner. So there's a stitch right at the end. I'll work a double crochet into that stitch, and then it's slip stitch into the second chain, 1, 2, from chain 2 to join. So for this round, you should have 10 stitches in between every corner. Round 6, chain 2. Chain 2 counts as a stitch. Now here you're working double crochets to our corners, and then you're working a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the corner. So if you count it here, our chain 2 counts as the first stitch. We'll begin with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 9 stitches before our first corner. And then on the second side, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Remember, you've got to work a stitch into this as well, into this double crochet here as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches, and then it's our corner. Here it will be 12 stitches and our corner, 12 stitches and our corner, and then we'll end off with 2 double crochets, and we can slip stitch to join. So it's double crochets into all double crochets and corners into all corners for this round. Here I am at the end of round 6. I've worked my last corner, and to end that round, it's 2 double crochets into these last 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2. And then into the second chain from chain 2, slip stitch to join. You can now fasten off and cut off on the excess yarn. So for this round, round 6, you must have 12 double crochets in between every corner. Like if we count it, here's our corner, the double crochet, chain 2 double crochets. So then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And there's our next corner. So it's 12 stitches in between each of these corners. Now we need to weave in all these ends. With your yarn needle and on the wrong side, the whole idea here is to weave in your ends into the same color. So you'll match your colors, and to get this tail end sort of lost into these stitches. So you're moving back and forth into your stitches. When you're satisfied with it, you can cut off on the excess. So you're doing the same with all your tail ends. I find that you may find these edges sort of folding inwards. You can just pull them to stretch them out. I didn't block these granny squares. I just stretched them like you see here. So this is it. So you'll make as many of these granny squares as need be for a throw or a blanket, and decide on the measurement of your blanket or throw. To join the granny squares, well, I will just be seaming mine in place, and I'm using the same color yarn as what I've ended off my granny squares with, so to blend it in. I didn't really want a visible seam showing. So, but this is totally up to you. There are hundreds of tutorials out there with different joins. So if you don't like this one, you can go ahead and join it in another way. Now I've got a length of yarn, and this is a length that I can manage. It's quite long. If you find it difficult, you can go shorter on your lengths of yarn. So right at the corner, and here we're matching it stitch for stitch on either side of our granny square. So right in the corner, into these loops, the one closest to each of these granny squares. So here I will join, and to start off with, I'll go ahead and just knot it here, and then I'm continuing on. So I'm not going into both loops, I'm going into the loops that are closest to each other on either side. So you continue on in this manner until you have all your granny squares joined, and once you move on upwards, you can bring in your next granny square on this side, and you can continue on bringing in more granny squares until you have your blanket or throw with the 4 straight sides. Okay, so here's the join. So yeah, continue on with joining those granny squares. Now as you join, you'll see here, and right, I'm here at the next corner. So you decide where you want to bring in your next granny square. You can bring it in this way and continue on this way stitching, or you can take it that way. So if you bring it in, now I've joined my first, from my corners, I've got 2 chain 2s. So I've joined the 1 chain 2, one of those chains to one of them from the corner on the side. And then with my second chain there, I'll join it to the chain on this side. Remember, you're matching it stitch for stitch as you go on. So concentrate on those, on the way you match them, and make certain that you are not missing a stitch or so in between. So this is what it looks like at the corner. So my next one, I'll bring it in there and join it in there, and I'll continue on to make this piece bigger and bigger to the actual size of throw or blanket that I'm looking for. I've continued on joining these granny squares. Now when you'll see when you're joining your granny squares and you're coming into adding your fourth granny square to close up on a corner like here, you may have to go into your stitches more than once in order to join these corners and not create a gap. So sometimes, like, I went into my stitch on the opposite side twice, and then it was once into the stitch on the side. So just be aware of that you may need to go into your stitches more than once to fully close up on these corners here that you see here. So like I said, I've gone ahead, joined as many granny squares as need be to get to the length of throw that I'm looking for. This is actually for a toddler, so I used 42 granny squares in total. You could go with more for a bigger, for a blanket or so. Let's get on with this edging. So for the edging, I'm keeping it really simple. It's just the same pattern that we had used here at the center, just after our flower motif. So at the corner, into that chain space, bring in your yarn. Then it's chain 2. Chain 2 does not count as a stitch. Into that same chain 2 space, work 6 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you'll skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, into the next stitch, work 6 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you'll continue on skipping 3 stitches, and then it's 6 double crochets into the 1 stitch, just as I have done here. When you get to the corner, you will work 6 double crochets into that chain 2 space at the corners. So I've continued a bit with my edging, and here you'll see at this join, where I am at the join, if I skipped 3 stitches, here it is 1, 2, and then I just worked my stitch there. So I'm also sort of eyeballing the distance here, because here's a corner and here's a corner, and I'm not really interested in working those 6 double crochets into these corners at the join. It's just that when I get to my corner right at the edge, at those 4 edges, into those corners, that's where I need to work my 6 double crochets. But all along the side, I'm practically eyeballing the distance. If I get to a point where there's no stitches here, I'm going to eyeball to see the distance of what I think, of where I think I could work 6 double crochets, just to get this pattern to flow along. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, and apart from that, working the edging, you get to the end, slip stitch, and then you can weave in all these ends, and that does it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I share anything, sweaters, cardigans, stuff for the home, plushies, It's anything, whatever I feel like making. So yeah, that's what my channel's all about. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed.